You have died. However, this isn't a permanent death. The cold hands of the Grim Reaper haven't fully claimed your soul, almost as if there's something restraining them, or really him, from collecting you. Instead, you wake and you realize you've been transported to a dreamlike area. It's not the afterlife, but neither is it the waking world. More something in between. A place that is distinctly calm and quiet compared to the rest of Yharnam. Here, you meet this dream's caretaker, the old and wheelchair-bound Gurman, who informs you of the hunt you are now a part of. Death is an inevitability to everything in life. However, here in Yharnam, most enemies and even yourself don't remain dead. Instead, just returning to where you once were, reliving the night over and over again till something goes right. To understand this, and potentially the ones responsible as well, exploring the mythology behind this might help explain this phenomenon. Let's first explore the caretaker of the hunter's dream, the old man you will progressively interact with throughout your hunt, Gurman. One of the more obvious observations is that Gurman is old, very old. It is uncertain what his age may be, but he is the only hunter you meet in the dream. Gurman clearly is a hunter like yourself, thanks to his knowledge and the clothes he wears. Being bound to a wheelchair aids in the look of an old and frail man. However, this comes to a head at the end of your journey. In your explorations of Yharnam, you've come to learn that Gurman is not who you thought he was. This frail and aged figure is something much more dangerous. Gurman is the first hunter, and distinctly wields a weapon fit for someone who is tied directly to death. Named the Burial Blade, the scythe that Gurman wields is the tool of choice meant for none other than the personification of death itself, though we know him by a different name, the Grim Reaper. Throughout the many religions and history, many depict death as an old figure that escorts the newly dead to their eternal resting place. Figures like the Anku of Celtic mythology and the Caustics of Slavic folklore share the more skeletal look of the Grim Reaper. There are of course many others who represent death, but we'll be getting to those later. It's not clear, but it's believed that the skeletal look of death began during the mid-14th century, in the event that wiped out much of Europe's population, the bubonic plague. More commonly known as the Black Death, this event drastically changed people's perception of death in their day-to-day lives and their religious practices. One piece of art during this time, labeled the Dance Macabre, saw skeletons of workers, children, and even the Pope dance to their graves. This meant that death did not discriminate against the poor, the young, or the able-bodied, showing that death was universal. As the bodies began to pile and rot during the plague, the masses' understanding of what was going on started to change, and the figure of death formed. Alongside the tall skeleton was the tool for extracting the souls from the living, the reaping scythe. This tool was very common among the farmers, as this could easily cut down long stalks of wheat or grass and harvest them for breaking down into flour or feed for animals, coining the term reaping. However, the scythe used for reaping crops has a mythological history dating back to the Greek gods. More specifically, the harvesting or reaping scythe was the tool most associated with the titan Cronus, the same Cronus who ate his children to prevent them from overthrowing his rule. In his book Theogony, Hesiod explains that Gaia, Cronus' mother, gifted Cronus with the great sickle to reap the loins from his father Uranus. Harvesting his own father's family jewels, Cronus had unknowingly produced the giants, the Erinyes, and the goddess of beauty, Aphrodite, when the foam of Uranus touched the sea. This story of reaping cemented the connection that Cronus had to the sickle and its uses, becoming associated with the season of harvest, being seen holding the blade in statues and paintings for this very job. During the 2nd century BCE, some 400 to 500 years after Hesiod, Rome adopted the Greek gods and goddesses into their own pantheon, of which Cronus was a part, becoming the god Saturn. Saturn maintained many of the aspects of his Greek counterpart. However, a small change had begun to take hold. Saturn began to be seen with the scythe. Much like the sickle, the scythe held the same role and symbolism to its holder. This change to the scythe was from the season and the festivities that the harvest brought within Rome's borders. The festival of Saturnalia celebrated the bountiful harvest that was brought to the people of Rome, and their god of the harvest, Saturn, watched over in glee. In addition to the harvest festival, the personification of time, Kronos, melded with Saturn to become similar deities. I should mention as well that this melding of Cronus and Saturn and Kronos happened within Greece as well. But Cronus was represented as an old, winged man, wielding none other than the scythe, showing that time comes for all at the end of life, and must be reaped from the world of the living to enter the land of the dead. We can look back to Bloodborne and see that this frail old man who greets us within the hunter's dream connects best to many elements of harvest, time, and even death. The first hunter, Gurman, sits in the hunter's dream as the personification of death, carrying with him always his scythe, ready to reap the hunters when their time comes. Perhaps as well, he is Father Time, sitting there for ages, ready to allow the next hunter to take his place in the next season of the harvest. If you enjoyed this, then you should check out my video on the hunts in Bloodborne, or check out the whole playlist here. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel, and like the video to show your support. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.